Hi everyone, a very good afternoon to all of you and welcome to this session. We are going to practice a few more questions for the exam CSAT, and these questions are of reading comprehension. Before we begin, आप लोग जल्दी से मुझे confirm कर दीजिए if you are able to hear me properly and see me properly. For those who are watching me for the first time, I'm your faculty of English. I take classes regularly on YouTube. So on this channel, we have classes Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. These 3 days of the week, time 1:30 p.m. On other 3 days, we have classes on our other channel, जो कि मेंस की classes, SBI मेंस की classes चल रही हैं, and days are as follows. So regular classes you have, the other channel is CGB IBPS Hub. Okay, you can subscribe that channel as well. Now, here we are going to continue with some more questions. एक series चल रही है. अगर आपने पिछले कुछ questions और classes miss कर दिए हैं, I would recommend you कि आप उन्हें ज़रूर पूरा करें. And we will do these questions with timer. बहुत कुछ रीडिंग और कॉम्प्रिहेंशन के साथ में आपको करना होता है. रीडिंग एज इन नॉट जस्ट टू रीड टू फाइंड सम फैक्ट और अ डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन, बिकॉज हमारे क्वेश्चन अजम्पशन के होते हैं, इन्फ्रेंस के होते हैं, आर्ग्यूमेंट्स के होते हैं. यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड the sense behind what author has written, why he has written, what he wants to communicate. A lot of things are there. That's why we require a lot of practice also, because कोई एक थंब रूल नहीं होता है. देयर इज अ स्ट्रैटेजी दैट डेवलप्स थ्रू प्रैक्टिस. यू स्टार्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग मोर थ्रू प्रैक्टिस. दैट्स व्हाई प्रैक्टिस इज वेरी. जल्दी से लाइक और शेयर कर दो. आई विल शो यू द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन नाउ. देयर वी गो. प्लीज टेक इनफ टाइम टू रीड द पैसेज. You have to answer here in the chat. Answer is B. Let's see how. The question is, according to the passage, try for such questions, read the question. What does deepening of democracy mean in Western context? तो ये आपका indirect question होगा. Let's see. In a typical Western context, deepening of democracy leads to consolidation of liberal values. In Indian context, democratization is translated into something. Individuals are getting involved in public sphere, not as not as atomized individuals, but as members of primordial communities. Okay. Now, यहाँ पर there is a contrast. It is something different than the Western context, जो कि Indian context में हो रहा है. Okay. So when the question says, what does deepening of democracy mean? Deepening leads to consolidation, means liberal values coming together. So democratization has greater involvement of atomized individuals in public sphere. This is what Western context relates to. And Indian context relates to treating them as members of the communities drawn on religious or caste identity. तो यहाँ पे जो एक contrast है, you were supposed to understand this. This was an indirect question and answer was C. Consolidation of group and class identities, consolidation of liberal values बोला है. So this was incorrect information. Democratization translated as greater involvement of people, that is also not what it is. It is translated into greater involvement of people, not as individuals. So यहाँ पर जो पूरा it was just half baked answer. So there you go. Next one. Same passage is there, so won't give you that much of time. I'm assuming that you people have read already. Answer is B for this one. So, greater democratization in India has not led to what? Okay, let's see. India वाली बात में और आगे क्या क्या मिल रहा है. तो इंडिया में कैसे कंसीडर करा जाता है इन्वॉल्वमेंट को एंड ऑल. विल रीड फ्रॉम हियर ऑनवर्ड्स. Community identity seems to be governing force. It is not therefore surprising that so-called peripheral groups continue to maintain their identities with reference to the social groups. तो कैसे इंटरफेरेंस हो रहा है यहाँ पे इन सब चीज़ों का. While getting involved in political processes despite the fact that their goals remain more or less identical. By helping to articulate political voice, democracy in India has led to loosening of structures. यहाँ पे loosening of social structures हुआ है क्योंकि उसमें भी जो core social values है follow नहीं हो रहे हैं. Empowered the peripherals to be confident of their ability to improve conditions in which they are placed. This is a significant political process that had led to a silent revolution through a meaningful transfer of power from upper caste elites to the various subaltern groups within the democratic framework. अभी क्या हुआ है ना, because it's about somewhere communities are drawn on religious and caste identity, ये सारी चीजें देखने को मिल रही. So greater democratization in India has not led to the dilution of the caste identities, communal identities. Dilution हो रहा है, it is clearly mentioned. I was supposed to mark not wala answer. Okay, so this is there, hence not an answer. Marginalization of elite groups in society, that is also happening, तो ये भी out हो जाएगा. Relative unimportance of hereditary identities over class identities. Hereditary means coming from the caste from where they belong. Okay, so वहां पर भी ये present है. Irrelevance of community identity as a governing force, ये तो उल्टा है. You can see the governing force, community identity seems to be the governing force. So irrelevance नहीं, relevance है community identity का, and hence this was not something that led to the greater democratization. So B was your answer. Okay, go ahead. Now, silent revolution was mentioned towards the end, clearly given. What is the silent revolution that has occurred in Indian democratic process? We can again go through the reference and check. If you need to do that, you do that. Okay, it's something you should do. थोड़ा आगे पीछे का पढ़ के. Okay. Now, what we get to see is, let's read from one line before. By helping to articulate political voice of the marginalized, democracy has led to loosening and empowered peripheries. This is a significant political process. This means जो पहले वाली बात है, that had led to a silent revolution through a meaningful transfer of power. So social change through transfer of power. Social change कैसे हुआ? क्योंकि elite से upper class या upper caste से नीचे तरफ जा रहा है. From upper caste to subaltern groups. That's what has happened, and that's what we can say is the silent revolution that has occurred. Revolution मतलब जहाँ पे एक बड़ा बदलाव आए, grand level का आए. Loosening in voting behavior, not mentioned in the passage. Irreverence of caste and class. Irreverence की reverence की बात करी है यहाँ पे, relevant है वो चीज़. चलिए जी, अगला करते हैं. The reasoning in the argument is flawed because the argument, what weakens the argument? Okay, so this is what was your question in some different vocabulary. Automobile accident insurance premium. Accident insurance premium is often higher for red cars than for cars of any other color. So first piece of information is premium is higher for red than for any other. To justify these higher charges, insurance companies claim that overall a higher percentage of red cars cause accidents than other cars of any other color. Okay, so red cars से ज़्यादा accidents होते हैं compared to other colors. If this claim is true, then damage to lives could undoubtedly be saved. Means अगर ये सच है तो damage could be lessened, alleviated by banning red cars from the roads altogether. फिर तो author बोल रहा है उसको ban कर दो. So the reasoning is flawed. ये reasoning flawed है because it ignores the possibility that the claim companies, जो भी claim of insurance companies है, the claim is not based on any evidence. It is just what they are saying. That's why there is no proof, no evidence, and because there is no evidence, ये पहला वाला argument weak हो जाता है. It ignores the possibility that drivers who drive recklessly have a preference for red cars. इसके लिए enough data मेरे पास है नहीं. We are not talking about preference of drivers. Does not specify precisely what percentage of red cars are involved in accidents. हायर परसेंटेज बोला है ना, प्रिसाइसली बोल भी देता तो फ्लॉड कैसे होता पहले वाला आर्ग्यूमेंट. मेक्स एन अनसपोर्टेड assumption that every accident results in some loss of life. So it was about the claim, it was about insurance premium, it wasn't about the loss of life or just an injury or something. So D थोड़ा सा ऑफ ट्रैक हो जाता है. Okay? Assumption question. Answer is D. An assumption could be, what assumption could be made? So first, let's read what is mentioned. The railway minister has announced that from now on trains would have a guide on board who is fluent in English. Uh, uh, Here we have somebody, a guide who is fluent in English language. This move is meant to increase the number of foreign tourists traveling by train. for foreign tourists especially. English speaking guides would make it easy for them to plan their journey. So they have a reason here. Now, author ने क्या सोच के ये piece of information share करी होगी? Most of foreign tourists who travel in India are familiar with English, and that's the reason here this is the first thought based on which author is writing that railway minister giving us more information that the minister has announced that there should be a guide on board who is fluent in English and they should help out the foreign tourists. Planes in India have people on board, so, if author might have thought of C as an assumption, he would have written more about the planes or in general guides needed for foreign tourists. Railway Minister wants to increase the number of tourists traveling by train in India. Now, some people can think this is true, but the assumption here is not what he wants, but he has done something. Assumption is the first thought why he is even sharing this piece of information with us. Because most of the tourists, he had this thing in mind. ऐसा सोचो कि tourists जो हैं, they are familiar with English and that's why English is the language for which we are looking a guide. So इसलिए English के ऊपर stress है यहाँ पे, the language in which we want the guide to speak. So that's why B नहीं होगा. Indian travelers are quite fluent in English. अगर travelers ही होते तो फिर why we needed a guide and why would you cannot say that all the travelers are gonna help foreign tourists all the time. Next one, inference question. This D. Now, inference is always from the passage, not outside, not the first thought or anything like that. So, we need to read the passage properly, understand the hidden meaning behind it. In the 17th century, occasionalism meant the intervention of God at every moment in every interaction between two or more entities. That's what in 17th century occasionalism meant. Herman argues that the very first time for a non-theistic occasionalism, he explains how interactions between objects can occur, but can only occur when both objects are located in the interior of some larger, more all-encompassing object. So उसने एक argument करा इंटरैक्शंस जो होते हैं दो ऑब्जेक्ट के बीच में हो जाते हैं, पर किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में होते हैं? द यूनिवर्स हैज लेयर्स ऑफ रियलिटी एंड वी नेवर गेट आइदर ऑफ द बॉटम और द टॉप. So again, it's a vast thing to comprehend in short. Harman did not have belief in God. Saying this completely is not what we get a hint of in the passage. Harman wanted to explain how two entities interact when God does not intervene. But intervention, जब वो occasionalism को समझा रहे हैं, so that is the intervention of God. This also is out. Existence of layers of reality makes understanding of non-theistic occasionalism difficult. Now, what is happening here now? You can see that he argues for the very first time, and he himself believes in non-theistic occasionalism, that the universe has layers of reality and we never get either to the bottom or the top. So it's difficult for us to understand, okay? And because of the existence of the layers, that's what we get from the last line. I really love assumption. They are really, really interesting. For this one, it's neither the first nor. What, with reference to the passage, the following assumptions have been made. Now, can we do that? First, let's see passage kya बोलता है. Passage says the miseries of the world cannot be cured by physical help only. Until man's nature changes, his physical need will always arise, and miseries will always be felt. Means there is no solution to it, and no amount of physical help will remove them completely. Miseries जो भी है human मिटाना नहीं हो सकता. The only solution of the problem is to make mankind pure. Mankind को pure कर दो. Ignorance is the mother of evil and of all the misery we see. Let man have light, let them be pure, spiritually strong and educated. So author suggests कि ऐसा ऐसा अगर हो जाए man, then alone will misery cease in the world. तभी misery जो है खत्म होगी. We may convert every house in the country into a charitable asylum. We may fill the land with hospitals, but human misery will continue until man's character changes. The author highlights here that there has to be an internal change, character-wise change, and then we will no more need any physical help and miseries will be gone. So the author gives primary importance to physical and material help in eradicating human misery. Author is giving us something else here. The only solution is to make mankind pure, not to keep taking more and more physical help, because he's saying that no amount of help will remove. तो ये थॉट ऑफ लाइन और जो पैसेज की थॉट ऑफ लाइन है वो टोटली डिफरेंट. तो फर्स्ट वाला नहीं होगा. चैरिटेबल होम्स, हॉस्पिटल्स कैन रिमूव ह्यूमन मिजरी टू अ ग्रेट एक्सटेंट. इसको सपोर्ट नहीं कर रहा है पैसेज. पैसेज इज सेइंग दैट देयर इज अनदर वे, लाइक हैव टू मेक देम प्योर, लेट द हाउस बी सो एंड सो. सो यहाँ पे सेकंड का भी प्रूफ, सेकंड थॉट का प्रूफ, एविडेंस मुझे नहीं मिलता है पैसेज में. हैंस सेकंड इज आल्सो नॉट एन अजम्पशन. Okay, दिस वन इज अ लेंदी पैसेज, तो थोड़ा सा आपको फॉन्ट इसमें थोड़ा छोटा दिख सकता है. आई वांट टू जस्ट आस्क यू गाइस इफ you can put your mobile phones on full screen and then do the question. Give you little extra time since the passage was lengthy. Answer first and second only. Okay. Now, please understand again. According to the passage, there are four things. Which of the statement is correct? So, किसमें से true कौन सा वाला है? You have to talk about it. See, many times, we may be asked which is not true. So, please carefully ये पढ़ना. Okay, for achieving inclusive growth, there is a critical need to rethink the role of the state. State के role को फिर सोचना चाहिए कैसा होना चाहिए ideally. The debate among economists about size of the government can be misleading. Need of the hour is to have an enabling government. India is large complex nation for the state to be able to deliver all that is needed. So size wise, it is very difficult for the state to cover all India properly. Asking government to produce all essential goods, create all jobs, keep a curb on the prices of all goods is to lead a large cumbersome bureaucracy and widespread corruption. एक ही point of गवर्नेंस से सब कुछ करना ऑथर से नहीं होगा. The aim must be to stay with the objective of inclusive growth. So होना क्या चाहिए ideally? It should be inclusive growth that was laid by the founding fathers of the nations and also to take a more modern view of the state can realistically deliver. This is what leads to the idea of an enabling state. That is a government that does not try to directly deliver to the citizens everything that they need. Now, instead, क्या क्या होता है? It creates an enabling ethos for the market so that individual enterprise can flourish and citizens can provide for the needs of the one another. तो यहाँ पे दो पॉइंट मेंशन करे हैं. तो इंस्टेड ऐसा करने के बजाय क्या हो जाता है? इट क्रिएट्स एन एनेबलिंग एथोस फॉर द मार्केट सो दैट इंडिविजुअल जो है वो फ्लरिश कर सके एंड सिटीजन्स फॉर द नीड्स ऑफ वन अनदर के लिए काम कर सके. एंड सेकेंड है इट स्टेप्स इनटू हेल्प दोज हु डू नॉट मैनेज वेल फॉर देमसेल्व्स, जो अपने आप के लिए पूरा नहीं कर पा रहे. हेंस वी नीड अ गवर्नमेंट दैट व्हेन इट कम्स टू मार्केट ऐसी गवर्नमेंट चाहिए इट सेट्स some rules and remains on the sidelines with the minimal interference. थोड़ा सा एक एक लिबरल फॉर्मेट यहाँ काम करे, दूसरों को भी काम करने के लिए इंक्लूड करके उनको चलाए, and that's how it plays an important role in directly helping the poor by ensuring that they get basic education and health services. तो फर्स्ट एंड सेकेंड ओनली इसका आंसर था. द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ वॉज लेड डाउन बाय फाउंडिंग फादर्स, वो बहुत क्लियरली दिया है. नीड ऑफ द आर इज टू हैव एनेबलिंग गवर्नमेंट, जो दूसरों को एनेबल करे, खुद ब्यूरोक्रेसी को नहीं फॉलो करे. द गवर्नमेंट शुड एंगेज इन मैक्सिमम इंटरफेरेंस. ऑथर इज सेइंग द ऑपोजिट, minimal interference. So third वाला गलत है. There is a need to change the size of the government is not what author is saying. Author is saying you want to have a government which is more inclusive. अभी same passage है. There is another question. Okay, so the answer to this one is, what is the essential message being conveyed by the author? There is a need to rethink the role of state in achieving inclusive growth. Throughout the passage, he is saying how, first of all, we should not focus on like we should not rely completely, or it should not be where government alone, the state government alone is taking care of everything, but we want people to get involved. There should be less interference, and that's why the role of the state should be rethought. ये clearly mentioned है. Okay. See, the objectives of inclusive growth laid down by founding fathers should be remembered. He supports that. He is saying that the inclusive growth जो है वो founding members, founding fathers के time से है, but he is not saying that we should now go back to that point and realize it again and do things accordingly. Government needs to make available more schools, very specific. Establish markets to meet needs of the poor strata of the society. We want to do something for those who need support and help, but it's all over the need to rethink how much the state is doing and how it is doing for inclusivity. तो वो चीज के ही ऊपर पूरा पैसेज डिस्क्राइब्ड था. Now, the question is which option best summarizes the idea that might be guiding experienced entrepreneurs' behavior? Many entrepreneurs try to control the composition of their boards of directors, but more experienced tend to share control about the control, inviting participation from institutional investors and outside directors. So, which option summarizes this idea that the experienced ones they expect experienced directors to monitor the performance of the enterprise and be a sounding board. They're letting them do their job. Okay, so the more experienced ones they share control. मतलब उनके board of directors के पास भी experience होना चाहिए, idea होना चाहिए, and that's how they are letting go. They are letting them do more work. Okay, so that is your answer. The experienced entrepreneurs expect the investors to support the opinion of entrepreneur. ऐसा नहीं है कि मुझे सपोर्ट करो. No, it's not like that. The experienced entrepreneurs expect institutional investors and outside directors to agree to higher remuneration. Remuneration की तो बात हुई ही नहीं है. It's about guiding. It's about leading the enterprise. Experienced entrepreneurs expect the experienced director to engage in day-to-day management. It is very specific, too narrow. Anytime the option is too narrow or too broad, that cannot be your answer. ये हमने पहले भी देखा है. So there you go. Answer was A. ठीक है? So we are done here. Thank you so much all of you for being here. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. I'll see you.